Hey, spiritual extremist, Dr. Lloyd-Moffett out here in front of the mushroom. And, there is a huge debate about the nature of insanity, of mental illness and madness. Um, and, you know, when we look at social scientists and psychologists discussing this, there is a huge, huge amount of literature. But let me sort of simplify it for you. For some people, mental illness is something that is absolute. If you cannot determine reality from non-reality, you are insane. If you are acting in self-destructive ways, there is insanity. And this absolute model says that it doesn't matter if you are in Borneo or Burma or Boston, insane action is insane action. If you're seeing things that aren't there, you're insane. If you want to kill your own baby, that's a mental illness. It's never okay to stick yourself with a sword in the cheek or roll around in feces. Now, the big debate historically is not what counts as mental illness or experiencing psychosis, but what's the cause? Because in the ancient world, the cause was seen as demons. Somebody acted in a not right way because of demonic possession. Now it tends to be sort of less associated with demons and more with either chemical imbalance or genetic problems, so something physical going on in your brain, or some emotional trauma. But notice that in the absolute models, there really is just a debate about the cause, but they say that everybody will agree on what counts as insanity. Now, people over the years have begun to challenge this notion. They have said that look, madness is a category that is determined by social means, by particular discourse. In other words, what is insane in one environment is often not insane in another. Is shyness a mental illness? Well, at one point it could be, but at one point it could just be a natural part or a natural, diverse way of being in a society. But then it could be medicalized as social phobia. And so, what social constructionists arguments say, is that madness or insanity or mental illness or psychosis, these are relative terms determined by primarily by society. Whatever is normal is a indicator that comes about through ordinary social discourse. We decide what is normal, and thus we decide what is abnormal. And so it isn't an absolute indicator, like everybody would just say that person is abnormal, because what is normal is constructed through social interactions with others. And so labeling something insane or a sign of mental illness is a way of stigmatizing behaviors you don't like. So, what's the difference between streaking and indecency? Well, in the end, streaking is something that's fun and kind of, accepted at certain times and certain moments. Indecency is not. It's the same behavior, but its value is determined by the social context. Now, we see this sort of argument made by somebody like Foucault. So Foucault argues that when you look at madness or insanity or mental illness, it is a way of differentiating people against the norms. The norms have just been determined largely by agreements between people. And so what Foucault is interested in is who has the power to label people insane or suffering from mental illness or abnormal. And Foucault says when you have the power to determine what is normal in society and thus stigmatize people with a label of abnormal, mentally ill, psychosis, that is true power in society. And so that's a social constructionist view of madness that says, okay, there might be some, sort of basic elements of insanity, but it's largely a tool by which those in power stigmatize or put down people they don't like. There's also a sort of radical social constructionist theory that says there is nothing that is inherently insane. All of it is a part of a means by which society labels some people as different. So there is no insanity whatsoever, but only a social construction of insanity in which people are stigmatized for being different. Now, why does this sort of spectrum matter? Is insanity something that's absolutely determined? Is there a degree of social construction, or is it radically socially constructed? Well, the reason why this matters is because as we look at holy figures, if there is something that sort of is biologically and absolute about their insanity, well, then they have a real sort of agreed upon insanity. But if it's all socially constructed, well, then maybe these people aren't biologically or chemically or genetically different from other people. They're just acting in ways that are not conforming to the norms of a society. And so appreciating this spectrum, is insanity, mental illness, psychosis, something that is absolute and universal, or is it constructed, becomes important as you think through this category of holy and insane.